On January 11, 2013, inside the Lowndes High School gym in Valdosta, Georgia, something happened that would become one of the most controversial mysteries in modern true crime. That afternoon, students entered the old gym for class. Just a normal day, until someone noticed something strange in the corner. A cluster of upright wrestling mats, rolled tightly and stacked vertically. One mat, nearly 6 feet tall, stood slightly tilted, and inside it, feet sticking upward, unmoving, was a body. The body of 17-year-old Kendrick Johnson. When the first student screamed, the gym erupted into chaos. Teachers rushed over, and someone dialed 911. Kendrick had been missing for almost 24 hours, but no one imagined he'd be inside a school mat. Deputies removed the mat, laid it flat, and pulled Kendrick out. He was upside down, his face swollen, his eyes barely visible. The official explanation came quickly: accidental death. They claimed Kendrick fell into the mat, trying to reach for his shoes. But even that first moment didn't feel right. The mat was too tight, the angle was wrong, and the way his body looked. Students whispered, teachers whispered. Something felt off. Very off. This wasn't just a tragic accident. It was the beginning of a mystery that would divide a town, spark nationwide outrage, and leave more questions than answers. From the moment authorities began documenting the scene, details clashed with common sense. The gym mat Kendrick was found in measured 14 inches across, but Kendrick's shoulders measured 19 inches wide. Even the deputies noted how tight the space was. If he had slipped in head first, how did he fit? And why would he climb into a mat vertically to get a pair of shoes? The questions multiplied fast. Investigators claimed Kendrick was reaching for his sneakers, which he stored behind the mats with other students. But when deputies photographed the scene, something disturbing appeared. There was no blood inside the mat, yet Kendrick's face showed signs of severe trauma. His body looked bruised, his skin discolored, and his jaw visibly swollen. If he died from positional asphyxia, as they claimed, why did his body look like that? And then came the shoe. Inside the mat with Kendrick was a pair of old gym shoes. One shoe was lodged beneath his legs, yet it had no blood, no dirt, no damage. It looked untouched, clean. But Kendrick's face was stained with blood that had pooled beneath his head on the gym floor. How could the shoe stay spotless if it was right under him? When the coroner arrived at the school, he made a statement that would echo for years. "My investigation is compromised. The body has been moved." The coroner's comment shook the room. According to protocol, he should have been called immediately when a body was discovered. Instead, more than 6 hours passed before he arrived. By then, Kendrick's body had already been handled, moved, and placed in a different location inside the gym. Critical evidence had been disturbed. The coroner later wrote, "This is highly unusual. This is not standard procedure." While investigators doubled down on the accident theory, the Johnson family refused to accept it. They knew Kendrick, athletic, strong, over 6 feet tall. They said he would never store his shoes inside a mat or climb into one alone. And when they viewed his body at the funeral home, they were horrified. Kendrick's face was unrecognizable, swollen, darkened, almost crushed looking. The family immediately believed something had happened to him long before he entered that gym. But then another unsettling detail surfaced. The gym's surveillance cameras, 4 different angles, should have shown Kendrick entering the old gym that day. But the footage had strange gaps. Parts of the video were blurry. Certain timestamps were missing. Other students appeared, then vanished. And no clear clip ever showed Kendrick walking toward those mats. How could a school with 35-plus cameras lose the one moment that mattered? The school said it was a system glitch. The Johnson family said it was a cover-up. And soon, more disturbing discoveries would support their suspicions. As investigators reviewed the gym footage, the inconsistencies grew impossible to ignore. On the day Kendrick disappeared, the timestamps didn't line up. One camera was out of sync by hours, another was missing frames entirely, and others showed students walking through the gym only to suddenly jump ahead as if entire moments had been erased. Yet the school insisted nothing had been tampered with. But parents and detectives asked the same question. How can 4 different cameras all malfunction on the exact same day? Meanwhile, students began speaking. Several of them admitted they heard rumors, arguments, and tension surrounding Kendrick and a few boys at the school. Some said there had been fights in the past. Others whispered that Kendrick had been targeted. One name kept coming up, the son of an FBI agent, but officials dismissed it as gossip. Then a chilling detail surfaced. Kendrick's lungs and organs were not inside his body during the second autopsy. Instead, his torso had been packed with newspaper. The funeral home claimed the organs were too decomposed to keep, but the Johnson family didn't believe that explanation. The medical examiner who performed the second autopsy said the organs had been removed long before embalming and had simply vanished. Where did they go? Who took them? This wasn't looking like an accident anymore. It was starting to look like something or someone was being protected. The second autopsy brought a revelation that stunned everyone. Kendrick Johnson didn't die from accidental asphyxia, the pathologist said. He died from blunt force trauma to the right side of his neck, a violent impact, a strike, something that did not match the fell into the mat explanation at all. The Johnson family finally had scientific evidence backing what they'd suspected from day one. But law enforcement rejected the findings immediately. They claimed the trauma was post-mortem, caused after Kendrick's death. The two explanations could not have been more different. The family demanded answers. They pushed for the release of every single camera angle from the school. When the footage was publicly analyzed, more problems appeared. In some angles, Kendrick seemed to be walking alone. In others, he wasn't visible at all when he should have been. A student behind him suddenly disappeared between frames. Objects shifted. Time codes jumped. Experts concluded the cameras were not motion-activated, meaning someone manually removed sections of video. Then came the shoes. The pair Kendrick supposedly tried to retrieve were found inside the mat, but they weren't his. They belonged to another student. Kendrick's actual shoes, the ones he wore to school, were found far away from the mat, covered in dark stains that looked like blood. They were never tested. Why would investigators ignore evidence that could change everything, unless they didn't want it tested? As frustration grew, the Johnson family began investigating on their own. They walked the school hallways, talked to students, and studied every piece of footage, frame by frame. That's when something terrifying became clear. Kendrick wasn't alone in the gym. Other students were seen walking in and out, yet none of them reported seeing anything unusual. One student in particular appeared repeatedly in the background. He walked in behind Kendrick, but there was no footage showing him leaving. His exit was missing, cut out. Why? Then there was the blood. Near the mats, investigators photographed a blood smear on a nearby wall. The stain was several feet from Kendrick's body. The official statement: that blood is unrelated. No DNA test was done to confirm it. A bloody tissue was also found in a bathroom trash can. Again, no connection, they said. But these dismissals only fueled suspicion. The Johnsons became convinced that someone knew more than they were saying. Two students, once involved in a past altercation with Kendrick, were brought up repeatedly by rumor and online discussion. Their father was a high-ranking FBI agent, and many believed this connection explained the strange dead ends. Law enforcement insisted there was no evidence against them. The family insisted there was no effort to look. The deeper they searched, the more the truth felt buried, just like the missing video, missing organs, and missing answers. As the case gained national attention, pressure mounted on the school and local authorities. Journalists began asking questions the Johnson family had been asking for months. Why were so many procedures broken? Why did the cameras glitch only where Kendrick appeared? Why did deputies move his body before the coroner arrived? But the strangest discovery came from the gym itself. When investigators reenacted the shoe retrieval theory, they tried inserting a mannequin Kendrick's size into an identical mat. It didn't fit. Not even close. The opening was too narrow, the angle too steep, the mat too tight. The reenactment proved one thing: Kendrick could not have fallen in. More than that, the mat was stored upright, wedged between other mats. To fall inside, Kendrick would have needed to climb on top of mats first, but there was no sign he had done that. No footprints, no scuff marks, nothing disturbed. So how did he end up inside? Then a deeper issue surfaced. The school gym had no record of when the mats were last moved, no list of who had been inside the gym, no clear chain of custody for the scene. And when police were asked why the gym wasn't sealed off as a crime scene, they simply said, "We saw no signs of foul play." But by now, almost everyone else did. And the next discovery would ignite global outrage. The moment that pushed the case into national headlines came when the Johnson family released the photos of Kendrick's face from the first autopsy. The images were shocking, his features severely swollen, darkened, and distorted. To the family, it looked like he had been beaten, not suffocated, inside a gym mat. Experts who saw the photos publicly questioned the accidental death ruling. They said the injuries didn't match a simple fall. They looked like blunt force trauma, consistent with being struck or assaulted. Authorities argued the swelling was caused by positional asphyxia, but the public wasn't convinced. Protesters gathered outside the school. News stations arrived. Suddenly, the quiet Georgia town was under a national microscope. The Johnson family, desperate for answers, pushed for a third-party review of the case. Meanwhile, online investigators began digging deeper into the school's culture. Students claimed there had been fights, rivalries, and tensions involving Kendrick months before his death. Messages circulated about potential witnesses afraid to speak. Then one name resurfaced again, a student who had argued with Kendrick previously. His father was an FBI agent, and rumors exploded that this connection was influencing the investigation. Authorities denied this instantly, but the timing, the mistakes, and the missing evidence only fueled suspicion. The Johnsons demanded the FBI step in. And in 2013, the case took a dramatic turn when an independent pathologist revealed something no one expected. Kendrick's heart was missing. The discovery hit like a shockwave.
During the second autopsy, the independent pathologist found that Kendrick Johnson's heart was missing. Not just the heart, several internal organs, including his brain and liver, were gone. In their place, newspaper, stuffed inside his torso like packing material. The funeral home claimed the organs had been disposed of during the first autopsy. But the medical examiner denied this, stating that the organs were intact when the body left his custody. So where did they go? No one could answer. The Johnson family believed the missing organs were intentional, done to remove crucial evidence. Without them, determining a true cause of death became nearly impossible. Even the coroner admitted that internal injuries could not be properly assessed. Public outrage grew louder. News channels demanded explanations. Protesters marched with signs reading, "Where are Kendrick's organs?" Meanwhile, the official investigation insisted there was no evidence of foul play. Then something else surfaced. The shoes Kendrick actually wore to school, found far from the mat, were stained with a dark substance that looked like blood. But investigators never tested them. They simply labeled the stains as unknown and moved on. Why ignore the shoes? Why ignore the blood? Why ignore missing organs? Every answer led to another question. And the more the Johnson family dug, the darker the case became. With each unanswered question, the Johnson family grew more convinced that someone was deliberately hiding the truth. Their suspicions deepened when they learned that student interviews were incomplete. Some students who were in the gym that day were never questioned. Others were asked only one or two vague questions before being dismissed. Even stranger, two students seen on camera entering the old gym just minutes before Kendrick disappeared were never interviewed at all. Why? Investigators gave no explanation. Then came another disturbing detail. When the family's investigator requested the full, raw surveillance footage from all 35 cameras in the school, the files they received were incomplete. Hours of footage from critical cameras were missing. Several files contained gaps. One clip even repeated itself twice, as if pieces had been overwritten. Experts analyzed the footage and confirmed multiple cameras had been manually altered, not glitched, altered. The Johnson family publicly asked, "If this was an accident, why does anyone need to delete video?" Authorities maintained their position, nothing suspicious. But the public no longer believed that. Then came a new witness, a student who claimed he heard a loud argument involving Kendrick shortly before he vanished. The name he mentioned? One of the boys long rumored to have fought Kendrick before. The witness described something unsettling. He heard raised voices near the old gym, followed by a loud thud, like someone hitting the floor or a wall. When he looked down the hallway moments later, it was silent. No one was there. He didn't come forward earlier because he was afraid of the students involved, and afraid of the people protecting them. Rumors had circulated for months that Kendrick had previously fought with one of the boys whose father worked in federal law enforcement. The witness said the tension between them never fully died down. But when investigators were asked whether they questioned these boys, the response was vague. "We followed all leads." Yet the interviews, if they happened at all, were never released. More troubling contradictions followed. A coach reported seeing Kendrick in the new gym just an hour before he was declared missing. Another student claimed he saw Kendrick heading toward the cafeteria instead. The timelines didn't match. The locations didn't match. And then a final contradiction. The official report claimed the mats had remained untouched all day. But several students insisted
they saw the mats being moved earlier that morning. If the mats were moved, then Kendrick's body didn't end up there by accident. Someone put him there. As more students stepped forward, a pattern emerged. Too many people had seen too many different things, and none of their accounts matched the official timeline. One student claimed he passed the old gym and heard something dragging. Another said he noticed the mats stacked differently than usual that afternoon. A teacher even reported seeing two boys acting nervous near the gym doors. But none of these statements appeared in the original case file. Not one. The Johnson family demanded to know why. Why were eyewitness accounts ignored? Why were key students never questioned? Why were the gym mats treated like ordinary equipment instead of potential evidence? The sheriff's office continued to repeat the same line: no signs of foul play. Then came the most alarming discovery yet. When investigators recreated the accidental fall theory, they found that Kendrick would have had to climb onto the mats first. But the tops of the mats were covered in dust, untouched. No footprints, no handprints, nothing disturbed. Meaning, Kendrick never climbed up. He never slipped in. Someone placed him inside the mat, deliberately, and whoever did it made sure there were no obvious signs. That terrifying possibility pushed the Johnson family to request something drastic: the exhumation of Kendrick's body for a third autopsy. And what they found next changed everything. When Kendrick's body was exhumed for the third autopsy, the independent forensic expert made a discovery that sent shockwaves through the case. The wound on Kendrick's neck was not consistent with accidental compression. It appeared to be caused by a blunt object, not by the pressure of hanging upside down inside a mat. The expert concluded that Kendrick's death was non-accidental and likely involved another person. This finding directly contradicted everything the original investigators claimed. But the deeper the forensic team looked, the stranger the inconsistencies became. The tissue samples that should have shown organ damage? Missing. The medical photographs taken during the first autopsy? Unavailable. It was as if pieces of the puzzle had been removed, intentionally. The family demanded answers from the funeral home, the coroner, and investigators. Each group gave a different explanation: decomposition, mistake, paperwork error. But no two stories matched. Then the Johnsons uncovered something even more disturbing. The school had refused to release the full gym layout, including the emergency exits and storage areas. Their reason? It is not relevant to the case. But the family believed these areas could have shown where Kendrick was attacked or where he was hidden before being placed in the mat. If someone moved his body, where did it happen, and how many people knew about it? The answers weren't coming from officials, but the public was about to uncover a clue that changed everything. As public pressure intensified, online investigators began analyzing every second of the released security footage. Several viewers noticed something the sheriff's office never mentioned. In one camera angle, a pair of legs could be seen briefly behind the bleachers at the exact time Kendrick reportedly entered the gym. The legs were not Kendrick's, the shoes didn't match, and moments later, the figure slipped out of frame and never appeared again. Whoever that person was, they were in the gym the same time Kendrick was, yet their identity was never investigated, never questioned, never documented. Another clue emerged from the photos of the gym mats. In one picture, the mat Kendrick was found in appeared closer to the wall. In another, taken minutes later,
It seemed to have shifted position. But Kendrick couldn't have moved it. He was already unconscious, or worse, by that point. So who moved the mat? And why? Then came the most chilling reveal from the online community. In the background of one camera's footage, a student was seen running inside the gym, glancing toward the mats, then abruptly turning around and sprinting back out. His behavior looked panicked, but he was never interviewed, never named, never mentioned in the final report. The more the public uncovered, the more the official narrative fell apart. And soon, an unexpected voice would come forward with a confession that shocked everyone. The unexpected breakthrough came when a former student, years after graduation, reached out anonymously to an online journalist. His message was short, shaky, and frightening. KJ didn't go into that mat alive. He claimed he heard something that day, a commotion inside the old gym that sounded like a struggle. He said he'd seen two boys dragging something large toward the corner where the mats were stacked. When he tried to tell a teacher, he was instructed to mind your business and go to class. But the most chilling part of his message was this: they weren't alone. He implied adults were involved, people with authority, people who could cover tracks, move evidence, and silence teenagers. The journalist asked for more details, but the witness refused to speak further, terrified of retaliation. He deleted his account the next day. Still, his brief testimony made something clear. If even a portion of what he said was true, Kendrick didn't end up in that mat by accident. He was put there. And then came a disturbing piece of physical evidence. When the family hired a private investigator to re-examine the gym, he found what looked like blood droplets on the underside of one mat. The stains ran downward, as if something had dripped before the mat was flipped upright. But by the time he identified them, the stains had been scrubbed. No samples. No tests. No answers. Someone was erasing the truth piece by piece. But the biggest revelation was still ahead. The Johnson family's private investigator didn't stop with the gym. He began tracing Kendrick's final movements, mapping every hallway the teen walked that day. When he reviewed the footage, something became unmistakably clear. Someone was following Kendrick. In one clip, a student can be seen walking several steps behind him. In another, that same student pauses, looks toward the old gym, then disappears into an unmonitored hallway. Minutes later, Kendrick enters the old gym and is never seen alive again. But the student who followed him, his exit from that area was never captured. The investigator brought this to law enforcement, but the response was immediate dismissal. That student had nothing to do with it. But they offered no explanation, no interview transcript, and no alibi. When the investigator asked to see the footage from the hallway where the boy vanished, he was told, "There is no footage." Yet blueprints of the school showed a camera right above that hallway. So where was the video? More troubling, the investigator discovered the gym's door on the opposite side, an emergency exit, had smudges on the handle. Not fingerprints exactly, but wiped streaks, the kind left behind when someone quickly cleans a surface. If Kendrick had died inside a mat, why would anyone need to wipe down a door handle? It suggested one terrifying possibility. Kendrick might not have died in the gym at all. He may have been moved there. If Kendrick had been moved, the next question was obvious. From where? The private investigator focused on a seldom-used hallway behind the old gym. Students said the door was always locked. Teachers said no one went back there.
But the investigator discovered something different. The lock on that door had scrape marks, as if someone had forced it open. And on the dusty floor inside that hallway, he found two sets of footprints, one large, one smaller, leading toward the gym. No official report ever mentioned these prints, because no official report ever looked. Inside this hidden hallway was a storage closet big enough to hide a person or hold someone who was injured. The air smelled like bleach. The walls looked recently wiped down. And on the floor, under a metal shelf, he found a small reddish-brown smear that looked like dried blood. The Johnson family requested testing. Authorities refused, saying it was old paint. No sample was ever taken. The investigator then traced the footprints again. They stopped at the gym door, the same door with wiped fingerprints. If someone carried Kendrick through that hallway, their route made chilling sense. A back door no cameras watched. A closet where a struggle could be hidden. A wiped handle. A gym with staged mats. The truth was forming a pattern, and the next development would blow the case open. National attention exploded when the Johnson family released all their findings to the media. The case was suddenly everywhere. CNN, NBC, BBC, social media, and true crime forums across the world. Pressure mounted so heavily that federal authorities had no choice but to respond. The Department of Justice announced they would re-examine the case, interviewing more than 100 people. But what they found raised even more questions. When investigators tried to retrieve Kendrick's original organ samples from the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, they were told the samples were missing, lost, or misplaced. 3 different explanations were given by 3 different employees. How does evidence from a high-profile death case simply disappear? No one could answer. Then came the bombshell. The family's legal team uncovered emails showing that certain individuals connected to the case, including parents of students rumored to be involved, had been communicating with school officials before the autopsy reports were even released. The emails discussed narratives, public messaging, and community impact. Why would anyone need to coordinate a narrative for an accident? But the biggest twist came when the Johnson family gained access to a set of sealed documents. Among them was a report about a violent incident involving one of the boys tied to Kendrick's past. An incident the school never disclosed. An incident that should have been investigated from day one. The revelation set the stage for what came next, the most dramatic turn yet. The sealed document revealed that one of the boys rumored to have fought with Kendrick had been involved in a violent altercation months earlier, serious enough that teachers intervened and disciplinary action was taken. But here's the twist. That incident never appeared in the school's official records. It had been quietly removed. Someone didn't want his name connected to violence. Then another discovery surfaced. Phone records from the day Kendrick disappeared showed that this same student left school early, at a time he wasn't scheduled to. His reason? Not documented, not explained. Just gone. But even more suspicious, the school's attendance logs for that day were altered. Handwritten corrections, scratched out times, and inconsistent signatures. Someone had edited the timeline. Investigators also uncovered a stunning detail. Both rumored boys' homes were searched by the FBI early in the case, but nothing from those searches appeared in the sheriff's official report. Not a single note. Not a single interview summary, as if the searches never happened. The family demanded, why investigate these homes if this was an accident? No one answered. And the deeper they dug, the more it seemed like Kendrick's death wasn't just mismanaged, it was buried under layers of conflicting information. Everything built toward one final question: not how Kendrick died, but why the truth was hidden. After years of fighting, uncovering hidden evidence, revealing contradictions, and exposing missing organs, altered footage, and unanswered questions, the Johnson family reached the final, heartbreaking realization: they might never learn the full truth about what happened to Kendrick. Not because the truth doesn't exist, but because too many people had the power to bury it. In 2021, the case was officially reopened one last time. Over 17 boxes of evidence were reviewed. But despite everything, the altered timelines, conflicting medical reports, missing video, missing organs, suspicious behavior from students, and multiple forensic contradictions, authorities again concluded there was no actionable evidence of foul play. The Johnson family called it exactly what it looked like: a cover-up. To this day, questions linger like shadows. How did Kendrick fit into a mat smaller than his shoulders? Why were his organs removed and replaced with newspaper? Why was the surveillance footage altered? Why were key students never interviewed? Where is the missing evidence? And if Kendrick climbed into the mat alone, why does no reconstruction in the world explain how? Kendrick's story remains one of the most controversial cases in American true crime history. A case filled with contradictions, unanswered questions, and painful injustice. Kendrick Johnson was buried a second time, but the truth about his death was never laid to rest. And the one fact no one can deny is this: accidents don't require this many explanations. Cover-ups do.